Hello, everyone. I wanted to take a moment and just share a quick message with you that came to me this morning. And it's in regard to this global consciousness raising and awareness. And also, I hear it called reckoning in regards to racism. And of course, brought on most succinctly by the death of George Floyd on May 31st. So I got an email in my inbox this morning on inviting me to a webinar about Black fatigue. And I at first was like, wow, that's nice. People need to be made aware that, yeah, it's a lot going on right now for Black people, and especially for people having to go into work and be on the front line. But then as I thought about it, I'm like, because I noticed that the majority of the audience receiving this within the group I was being sent to were white people and white leaders. And so I thought about, okay, it's time to send a message about healing. Because number one, Black people have been fatigued for over 400 years. That's not new. What's going on right now? It's nothing compared to what we as a people have been through. As a Black woman who has ancestors in slavery, I know that they suckled their master's children to the detriment of their own. And suckled, if you don't know what that word means, look it up, Google it. Uh, but basically, I mean, it don't get any worse than that. So what's going on now is really a breaking through. And yeah, George Floyd's death was traumatic, but not just to Black people. It was traumatic to the entire world. That's why you have the kind of protests and responses going on around the world. So I thought about, okay, it's very easy to put attention to me where, yes, some attention needs to be there, but here's where the attention really needs to be. And I believe the tension really needs to be on growth and healing for white people or anybody who has been participating consciously or unconsciously in a system of dominance. Because ultimately, that's what racism is really a consequence of. And throughout human history, we have had this notion of someone or ones dominating over another group of people. We have seen it develop into a very powerful belief system called the feudal system, which we know, from fairy tales because of the knights and the round table and kings and queens and the serfs that were working on the land. But that system is definitely what got transferred over into America during the time of the slave trade. And it's also the system that has really structured and framed all of our systems, economic, social, all of our institutions, religious, family. And so it's really important to understand where things are rooted in, because if you don't address the root, then it's just going to keep happening. So in other words, even if a Black person is put into a high leadership position, or it doesn't have to be a Black person, it could be any of the others. So it could be a woman, somebody who's LGBT identified. If you're put into a system that is based on dominance, then you will be also caught up in doing the exact same thing that was done to you, whether you're conscious of it or not. So, to me, the real way to get at racism and any other forms of dominance is to really, let's look at what is causing that. What is that really rooted in? And so, the deeper root for us as human beings, and on a very personal level, it has to do with what is called being object referred. And object referred means that in order to know myself, in order to feel good about myself, I have to compare myself to someone or something outside of myself. And so, in order to feel good, I'm going to look for what's wrong in someone else, what's bad in someone else, what's less in someone else. We see this played out very easily in marriage relationships, and in especially in the 1950s. There was actually, excuse me, a show called Father Knows Best. And the whole idea here was that, despite what everybody else is doing in the family, the father is the last word. He's the king, he's in charge, he's it. And that's why you had so many divorces occur in the 1960s as women began to wake up to, wait a minute, this is not okay. Like, I'm a human being, I'm not less, something's wrong here. But that notion of men would be, not having their wives work, or you can't go to school, or you can't have a business, or you have to stay home. And all of that was coming out of a vacant self esteem on the part of the man. In other words, that his ability to feel like he was safe and secure and in control was based on the fact that his wife wasn't. Um, and so I laugh about it a little bit, but it's really serious, and it still gets played out today. It still gets played out today. Um, and so I bring that up to say that that's the model, that's the belief system that really has to be addressed. And so anyone who has what I call the dominance factor working inside of them needs to take on, how can I let go of this codependency? Because that's the other name for it. It is a codependency. So when we talk about racism, it's white codependency. It is a white person needing someone of color, a black person, somebody who's different, whoever is the other, to appear less than in their eyes. Now, yes, you're allowed these anomalies. We'll call them the anomalies, like Oprah. Oprah would be considered an anomaly, but it's like, well, that's just one, just few. But for the most part, right? People of color are going to be poor. They're going to be the most vulnerable. They're going to be the most this and that. And all of that is an illusion, and it does get reinforced in a very real way because of this system that we have going on. So, what is the anecdote? The anecdote is, and this is especially for the woke white folks and the waking up white folks out there. To address racism, you need to address that part of yourself that is object referred, that is looking outside of yourself in order to know yourself. And you need to go in and do your work to really discover who you really are, what your real purpose is in life, because this ain't about dominating anybody. That's not why we're here. But what's your real purpose in life? Making money. That's not a real purpose. It can be the consequence of being on purpose, but that's not why we're here. Um, and so to want to do that work, now, since the 90s, especially, really probably going back to the 70s, I'll say, there have been woke white people writing wonderful books that are still relevant today to help people do that work, to go in. Names like Wayne Dyer, Caroline Meese, Gary Zukov, who wrote Seed of the Soul, which I highly recommend for the times we're living in. Even James Redfield with the Celestine Prophecy that comes out in the mid 90s. So, in other words, there's a wealth of information, ideas, new thought out there to help anyone to really learn how to take on doing their inner work. And of course, as you can see over here, the little commercial from my book, The Wisdom Walk to Self Mastery, that's another approach. It's an African indigenous approach to also doing that work of healing and growth. So, I hope this is helpful. I am going to be doing an article on this for Medium, and we'll let you know about that. I also probably will be rolling this into my upcoming broadcast starting in August again. And again, just really, really, really saying a prayer for the great healing and growth that needs to happen. For Black people, yeah, we're fatigued, but we need to recover from the impact of racism. And racism really isn't our problem. It really is a white people problem, or anybody who identifies as being dominant or supreme over another race, another culture, another idea. And so we got to do this healing work, folks. We got to do this work. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again very, very soon. Bye bye.